So calculating that discount, that is math. And then some other specs that are included in planting and preparing for your garden is they need to be harvested. It takes at least 60 to 65 days for that harvest time. So the depth, in other words, how deep are you going to plant those seeds? That's part of measuring. You need to make sure the depth is at least 1/2 an inch deep into the soil before you begin to plant those seeds. Let's see what else we can find here in terms of math at the nursery. Again, we're here today at Oakland Nursery with some East Linden Summer Experience students. And here I have with me is
Zadaya and Sayana.
And they're going to help me do something called subottizing. Now I've got a really pretty plant to show you, and I want you to look at the plant and tell me how many blooms you see. You ready?
Yeah.
This one.
3.
3? How did you know it was 3?
Because I was looking with my eyes.
Yes. You didn't have to count, you just knew, right? Now we are still going to count so we can confirm that there are 3. Let's count together. That's 1, 2, 3. So that's 3. Great job. Give me a high five. Yes. So if you're thinking about planting your own garden, remember there are a few simple math concepts that are wrapped up in gardening, like measurement, time, the size and shape of your garden, the square footage that garden is going to cover. Perhaps a visit to Oakland Nursery will inspire you to want to create your own garden. As always, thank you for joining us today with Math Everywhere. And as always, math is everywhere.
I can say it's truly magical. They love the taste of fresh produce just from the plant. Some of my students don't even know where some food comes from the grocery stores, so they learn so many things when they garden.
So they really want to be a part of it. Some of them at first, they're really excited about it, but then there are others that say, I really want to know a little bit more about this, so it's more than just looking and glancing at it. It's like, how can I be a part of this? Because I've seen it go from being just a seed, and now it's growing, and I want to be a part of that process.
So they really take care of everything and do it all and know how to do it all, and they have a lot of pride in that, in showing whoever comes into our classroom what they do and how they do it and what they've grown.
I think it's really cool that they're learning how food is actually grown now, because so many places are using all hydroponics, and so it's really opening their mind to see different ways that food can grow.
Learning how to grow is really important, and when you see it in person, it's a lot different than just reading about it or seeing pictures of it. And taking the fresh produce that you grow and then being able to cook it and taste it in your classroom, then potentially going home and requesting it at home, I think is pretty powerful of an impact.
It tastes different because it's more fresh at the moment, and also when you freshly pick it and just go wash it real quick and then eat it, it's crunchy and delicious. But when you buy it from the store, it doesn't taste normal.
This is the best salad I ever tasted. This salad is so much yummier than my mom's own salad.
Having like a fresh lettuce that you just picked is really, it has its unique taste.
It was my first time ever trying bok choy and kale. They looked pretty weird at first. When my friends told me to try it, I just took a bite and it was super good.
Oh, it's so cute because they really have a new taste when they try like tomatoes from the grocery store. I mean, they don't taste the same as fresh from the vine, and just their brains are exploding. Like normally they want to ask for ranch and they just pop it without it, so that's amazing.
In the spring of 2024, Fort Hays was unexpectedly without a choir teacher. The principal, Dr. Milton Ruffin, took it upon himself to teach the class. Their final project was to be a recording of a song written by Dr. Ruffin. We now present to you the result of their hard work.
All right, let's do Celebrate. Hey, you ready? Go. Hey, so we get the drop the jaw instead of ya. Hey, ya. Hey, ya. 1, 2, ready, and. Hey, ya.
I was pretty nervous. I'm not even gonna lie. I was nervous, but then again, I was very excited. I was like, this is my first time going to record. I hope I don't mess this up for everybody. You know, all these thoughts in my head. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I did it. I have no regrets of doing it. I wish I could do it again. Sadly, this is my last year. But yeah.
There's a brighter day coming, and it's getting closer every day. There is a brighter day coming where we all participate and we'll overcome that day.
He treated us like he treats his college students.
Yeah, which was cool, but at the same time, it's a little rough to meet those expectations.
It was very challenging for us to get there.
So we clap our hands and we lift our voices. In home, I can find a better you. In home, you can find a better me. In home.
I listened to just the stems of the song every day for about 2 weeks before the recording session, and then when I came in, you know, we did about 2 takes of it. I think it was a combination of like the first and second take, and looked at the digital audio workstation on his computer, and try to make the drums sound as keen to the song as possible.
Now we stand at last. There's a brighter day coming, and it's getting closer every day. There is a brighter day coming where we all participate and we'll overcome that day. We celebrate the mountains we come over and press towards a perfect.
And so it's tricky, especially for people who are not used to recording, young students, people who it's their first time recording. They get nervous. There's really no audience to give you that energy feedback and that appreciation for what you're doing. It's just an empty room with me.
There's a brighter day coming, and it's getting closer every day. There is a brighter day coming where we all participate, and we'll overcome that day. And we celebrate, and we celebrate, and we celebrate, celebrate, and we celebrate, and we celebrate. And we celebrate, celebrate, and we celebrate, and we celebrate, and we celebrate,
All right, CCS Cinema Club, welcome. My name is Leia Gersing, and I'm here with, of course, Sarah Durr. And it's just us today, no special guests, because we're getting into this movie. We're talking about Dune Part 2 today.
What if Paul Atreides were still alive?
Going on adventures, flying in space, surfing ancient sandworms, and fighting in an interstellar war. Dune is the science fiction with a message to spread that we will be talking about today. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, Sarah, we're talking about Dune today. Are you excited?
I'm so excited. This movie was so good. I didn't know what to expect going into it, but I was I loved it. It was so good.
So when did you see, did you watch Dune 1 with me, Part 1 with me?
No, I was there when you were finishing it.
Okay.
I watched Dune 1 the last day it was on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
So I just
were kind of
under the
late.
wire. I was kind of late. I hadn't seen it when it originally came out.
Yeah.
But I really liked that one too. I'd say definitely between the two, I preferred the second one.
Yeah.
Just because the first one kind of felt like there was a lot of exposition, which of course it had to be with, such a big story. But I really liked the second one.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first one was a lot of setup, which can move kind of slowly, but it kind of gets you set up for the next movie, which is important. But it can be a lot. And so a lot of people might have said that the first one was a bit boring. And I honestly like setup movies, which is kind of weird. But so I really enjoyed the first one, but I did like the second one better. It's definitely more action-packed. So if you like action-packed movies and you saw the first one, you were like, I don't know. Watch the second one because I think you'll enjoy it. There's a lot to talk about Dune, but let's talk about why is it worth it to see the second one?
Oh my gosh, so many reasons. I feel like the main thing that a lot of people are talking about is the effects. It was really incredible. There's a lot of ways that the things in this movie could have looked like really crazy with bad effects, but it looked so good. There were a lot of really action-packed moments that you felt like you were really in the action.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes bad special effects, they really just take you out of it. But there were a lot of good special effects. The visuals are amazing. And just the story is it's complex and it has a really important message for people to hear. So yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool themes. There's a lot of religious themes, and then also a lot of themes about war. And those kind of go together. So that was really interesting. We'll probably get more into that more in the spoilers end. So what type of audience do we think would enjoy Dune? If you're more of an action person, what do we think?
I think that definitely sci-fi fans really love it. Also, anyone who likes action movies, people who read the books. I personally didn't read the books, but I think that it's really interesting to see the translation between book to movie.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we love book to movie adaptations on this pod.
We love it.
We love them. Honestly, I think that, yeah, a science fiction lover, if you love things like Star Wars, even Harry Potter, I think you'll like this.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a really good one. And I also think that this is, while it's a very serious movie, there's a lot of comedic elements in it, which I thought was really cool. So let's talk about some of our favorite characters. Well, who is your fave character? I can't remember her name.
It's
the one that Zendaya plays. I honestly cannot remember her name either, but it was like Desert Spring was like her, one of her names, which foreshadows a moment in the movie that we'll talk about later. But yeah, Desert Spring. We'll call her Desert Spring or Zendaya. That works. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, I just loved her. I thought that she was really honest. Like,
Sorry. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. It is June 10th. This is the Academic and Facility Alignment Committee. Welcome to our June meeting. Will you please call the roll?
Mr. Cox?
Present.
Dr. Pierce?
Present.
Dr. Kennedy?
Present.
Mr. Dare?
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right. Will you please stand and join me in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, on our agenda this evening, we have approval of the minutes. We have 2 items on committee work, and we have a committee update on survey data. Is there a motion to approve our agenda?
To approve the agenda.
Second?
Second.
Without objection, our agenda is adopted. Okay, so tonight we are starting the work on learning more about academic return on investment and being able to start to use that and understand that as a tool as we start to dig deeper and more strategically in some of our non-mandated requirements. I say it like that because we've been talking about layer 1, 2, and 3, and there were some questions about, well, what's layer 2? What's layer 3? So layer 1 is all that mandatory required stuff. Our task is to take everything else and figure out if it's going to be a layer 2, which is something our community says, we know that's not mandatory, but it is for us, or if it's a layer 3, which is something that we find beneficial, maybe to some students, or maybe doesn't have quite the best academic return on investment. And we want to undergo this process so that we can start having different community dialogue regarding what then goes into our education specifications, because we will want to build what our layer 2 is into that, because our community says, no, that's going to be a mandate for Columbus. And eventually, when we start to talk with our ETRM committee in more joint sessions, those will come into budgetary discussions as well. So we are going to start that tonight, which is pretty exciting. So I invited our treasurer to give us a presentation just in general about academic return on investment. Our hope is that in the fall, maybe at some point, we're going to have Dr. Rosa from Georgetown come back and do a little bit deeper work with us around this so that we can get, we can hear it from the expert. We'll say it that way.
Sure.
So I'll turn it over to you, Treasurer Cook. Yes.
Quick point of order. Before we move to the presentation, I motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Thank you so much. We'll go back to that. All right. Yeah.
Motion to
Item
approve.
2.1.
Second.
Any changes or additions to the minutes?
No.
All right. Without objection, the minutes are approved. Thank you for that, Dr. Pierce. I just got so excited to talk about.
There we go. I love the enthusiasm.
All right, now 3.1.
All right. Good evening. As Board Member Adair said, we started this journey a little over a year ago. We've had Dr. Rosa from Georgetown University here in a cross-functional capacity with both I will say, the financial team, business and ops team, and most importantly, the academic team to really kick this work off. Dr. Todd Walker started kind of as the project champion in conjunction with Catherine Mosier, and we've really just started to propel this work forward, to your point. So at a high level tonight, I want to spend a few minutes talking about what is academic ROI, how are we looking to apply it here in the district, and what are some of the outcomes we can expect from that, along with a timeline of where we're at. So I think as a foundational level, what is it? Academic return on investment, it's an analytical framework that measures the cost effectiveness of educational programs by looking at student learning outcomes and comparing them to the cost of achieving said outcomes. The ultimate goal is to use this as a framework to help us really, to your point with the levels, look at what programs we have, how are students achieving, and what is the level of investment required to drive said achievement. One of the notes that that hit home with me as I prepared this was, money isn't the goal, impact is. Money drives that impact. So it's really a mindset shift in the district on, yes, the money matters, it's important. We talk a lot about how we're not getting dollars from the state, but then how do we allocate the dollars that we have to drive impact for our students, which is what we're ultimately here for. And my clicker's not working.
Oh, God.
Okay.
You said next slide?
Yeah. Oh, we've got something going on here. There we go. How does it work? So it isolates the impact of a specific program, be it a math curriculum. Whoa, we're bouncing around. I'll adapt.
And let them fix whatever tech thing is happening.
It's all right. Tech's great when it works.
This kind of stuff, I feel like you need the slides.
Yep, I would agree. We're getting there. Here we go. Okay, let me reset on this. It isolates the impact of specific programs, compares student growth to the growth that would have occurred without the investment. What works? Again, it quantifies the impact. At the end of the day, every program we utilize in a district is about student outcomes and impact. So we want to make sure that the dollars we have are being driven towards the most impactful programs. Obviously, for whom? Students. It benefits students, and that's what we're in the business of doing. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, at what cost? And I don't want academic return on investment to be an indictment against programs, because we don't know what we don't know until we go down this journey. But again, it's about reallocating. We're now in an era where we don't have unlimited resources to use. So how do we make sure that we get every student across the stage with a diploma in a high-tech environment with programs that they can achieve? That's what we're doing. It's reallocating our resources to the most impactful programs that we have. Why does it matter? It's really a transformational process for school systems. It is a budget tool that helps us manage. I will say, as we've had Dr. Rosa here, she's the foremost leading expert. Nobody in the United States has done this well. Columbus City Schools has a real opportunity to change not only education here for our students, but be the model of success as well. That was quite astounding to me. It matters because we can make evidence-based decisions. We can replace guessing, and I'm not indicting that that's what we do, because I think everyone has students' best interest at heart with program selection, but we can now really put some data behind that. I know Dr. Brown and his team do that now, but we're really looking to marry those expenses with that data so that then as we have committee meetings, we talk to the community, and then the board makes decisions at the table, we can substantiate those decisions, and the board can feel confident that we can expect X per unit of gain based on the spend. Again, resource optimization. Ensure that every educational dollar is directed towards programs that maximize student success. Promote equity. We can pinpoint which targeted investments close achievement gaps for specific learner profiles. Again, this is a board guardrail. So it's a critical piece of guardrails that the board has in place, and it can help us close gaps. How do we calculate it? This is a rather complicated slide. We're not going to walk through each box of this, but we're going to take all of that student data, pre-test, post-test. We're going to look at the cost of those programs, and we're going to be able to compare it at a programmatic level, at a building level, and at a district level. We can even begin to analyze data on a regional level. So it's a very powerful tool for us to look at across demographics, across investments. What is one building doing with a program that is having success, showing success that another building can hopefully replicate? Because again, it's about resource maximization. At the end of the day, all of that student data, all of that money that's invested comes up to a cost per unit of gain. That's the ultimate goal. Timeline. As Board Member Adair mentioned, we're going to continue to work with Dr. Rosa. We've got a cross-functional team in place. I had a meeting with Auditor O'Connor last week. I will tell you, principals in our district are excited about this. It's wonderful that it's taken on a bit of a life of its own. We're now trying to make sure we corral and capture that energy so that it stays centralized. I've had a lot of folks reach out to me on how do we get this thing moving. So phase one is this governance team formation, cross-functional team we've identified. We've got Ms. Mosier from the superintendent's office. Dr. Brown has volunteered. He sent me some work that he's doing. I'm looking at that. We've got my staff and my team working on this, and we've got IA involved. Again, I think it's important that all three direct reports are involved. To me, the Office of Internal Audit, we want this to be auditable, verifiable, independent, if you will, so that nobody's cooking the books, for lack of a better word. The data is verifiable and the board knows when they get it. His team is down in the weeds on this, and when we tell them it's this, it's this. It's solid. Phase two is program identification and selection. We're actually in the midst of this right now. What do we need to look at? Cross-functional programmatic team with that. We're now trying to identify what do we want to bite off of the apple right now. We're going to evolve that. This is a new process here at Columbus. I don't expect that we'll have perfection out of the gate. It'd be wonderful. But we're going to learn from our mistakes as we go through this. Again, like students learn. This is new to us. Phase three is the data collection and analysis. I've got that slated for late summer. And so we're selecting the program. We're going to work on all of the performance metrics throughout this summer. And then academic ROI reporting. We're going to develop the reports and the findings late summer. And then my goal is, as we get back to school in the fall, I've labeled it, for this committee to begin to bring that first project forward, analyze, talk about, I like to say an after-action review. What went well, what didn't, how do we adjust, what are we seeing? Because again, we've locked in our programs for next fiscal year here in the district, but as we begin to apply this analysis to those programs, it's going to help us come January when it's budget season, make better informed decisions on things we think are working that maybe we'll be surprised about. So it's an exciting time for us. Again, we're going to evolve. We're going to do a lot of learning internally on this, and we're going to bring this to the committee level, the community level. Again, as we talked about the levels of investment we're making, non-negotiables, optionals, et cetera, I think this framework can help us really solidify and back up those decisions as we go through some of the facility and academic decisions, and report that out at the board level to really help equip board members at the table. So that's a high-level overview. There's a lot there to unpack, but I think for the community that's watching, we've got cross-functional involvement. We've got principals that have really embraced this. They've come to the seminars, and they're excited to do this work because I think they're in the trenches. They see the impact this can have. They recognize the constraints on their building budgets. How do they maximize those dollars to give students what they want? That's the ultimate goal, impact. With that, concludes my report. I'm open.
Yes, are there any questions? Just a couple points to reiterate here. We are all learning out loud in this, and you heard Treasurer Cook say that although Dr. Rosa has been studying this, no school district has really implemented it in a way that I think has caught on and worked. And I think we're also different because we are implementing it with our governance model, which I think when I sat in both of these separately, I was like, they go together.
They do.
And it made me really excited that we could do this and, do it well and do it in a way that shows our community the transparency that we say that we we use that word.
Yeah.
But really, I think it's the accountability for every dollar that we are getting, and how that is making sure that we are reaching those student outcomes. Dr. Rosa, I think we have talked about this before, but she has a website. Make sure you all get that link again. So much data. So much. You can drill down by school. You can compare us to neighboring districts. You can look at it all sorts of ways. You can look at districts across the country. It's pretty amazing what the Georgetown team has done. So I'm excited about it. And again, we wanted to start high level because tonight we're going to start on one of the program schools where we want to start practicing kind of some of this dialogue and discussion. And we were introduced to the single gender schools last meeting, but we want to take a deeper dive. I promised you that in our last meeting. So we're going to take a deeper dive, and we're going to start to use this return on investment lens over programs. And we're going to be doing this. This is going to be what we do now. And so we're starting with the single gender schools, and we will continue to do this for different program schools, offering whatever we need to do as this committee. So I'll turn it over to Russ Brown now so that we can begin this dialogue. And again, because this is brand new, especially to our community members today, there is something that just makes no sense, or you need more support or understanding. That's why you're here, because we want to make sure that our community can start to understand these concepts as well. So you speaking up is so helpful to all of us, which you guys do, but just want to make sure I say that out loud. All right, Russ.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Treasurer Cook, for the background on that. I would add that this is an extension of a program evaluation tool that has been in place for a while. It is work that I've seen done in 2 prior systems that I was involved in terms of looking at attaching dollars to outcomes. But I'm happy that we're working collaboratively in a framework around that. It's something that was central to the recent Harvard Strategic Data Fellow meeting, for which Jordan and Jenny were there for that, and I was very happy because it sort of connects us, and again, builds this connective tissue where we're working together. Great. And before I go further on this, I do want to give some thank yous for the folks who were engaged in this process as one of our Harvard Fellows worked through this. Dr. Stephanie Patton, who was the principal at the girls' school, provided a lot of historical information about that. Jordan Hayes worked hand in hand with our Harvard Fellow on how we're interpreting this data, as did Terry Addison on that. Ann Palcisco, again, one of our Harvard Fellows, was involved with this work as well. And then Mike Barnes, the Director of Strategic Staffing. So it was a collaborative effort across multiple offices and multiple direct reports here to come together with us. That being said, I'm not going to pretend this is perfect, but it is a way for us to begin to frame a conversation and move forward with it. And I do think it is an important way for us to look at, if we're investing money for a program or an activity with our kids, what's the return, what's the cost per unit for that? And ultimately then there's a value judgment that has to be made about whether or not that makes sense for us as a system. So I'm going to present some data today, but I think it's going to raise the question about the value judgment at the end that goes with it. So we know historically that school enrollment is one of the primary drivers of cost in our system. Schools with low enrollment are more expensive. We heard this a couple years back, connected to our work with ERS. It was part of our driver for looking at consolidation as a way to reduce costs. The gender academies, the boys and girls school, both have some of the lowest enrollments in system, definitely the lowest middle school enrollment in the system. This year, the boys' school ended with 80 students, and the girls' school ended with 174. Again, these are the smallest middle schools in the system. And you can imagine staffing a middle school for 80 students is That's a very costly thing to do. So the core question here is, is the district getting adequate return on its investment for these two schools? And what are the options if it's not as we move forward? So the research questions that the team looked at were, what percent of the seats are filled at these two sites? Just, what's our utilization for the sites? What's the cost per student at each of these sites? And how does it compare to our remaining facilities? So, what does it cost us to educate a kid at the boys' school? What does it cost to educate a student at the girls' school? And what does it cost us to educate students at the remaining 6-8 schools? And then moving on to academic performance. What's the cost per proficient student? And the math is pretty straightforward. I see a question.
No.
No? Okay. When we look at utilization, it's really how many seats are available and how many are used. So what percent of the seats in the building are used? Cost per student, total spending for the building, and this, thank you again so much for the treasurer's team, because they really defined the cost set that we used for this, and then we just divided it by the enrollment. And we averaged over time, so it's not just a single year. We looked at this across years to balance that. And then the last is, how much did it cost per each proficient student? Yes, sir.
Sorry, now I do have a question. So what all goes into, I see for the cost per student, total spending. So what all goes into the total spending?
There's a laundry list of costs there. I would actually have to go back and pull that out and bring the list of budget codes. We work with the budget team. That obviously includes staffing, utilities, et cetera. It was the total cost at the building site, everything that could be woven in. And it was actual spend, not budgeted.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So what was actually spent each year at these buildings and then divided by the enrollment.
Thank you.
Yeah. But if you all want us to bring the list, we can.
I would.
Yeah, okay. And here's what we found. So what percent of the seats are filled? So if you look at the very bottom there, you see the school for girls and the school for boys. And you see over the past 4 years, these have been the least utilized middle schools in the system, substantially below what we would wish to see. Ideally, we'd like to see middle or secondary settings utilized at about a 75 to 85% utilization rate. That's the ideal. They are substantially below that, and substantially below even their closest peers on that. And unfortunately, that pattern of enrollment is pretty stable. So if you look at the top there, the top line, the black line reflects average enrollment across other middle school sites. Our middle schools tend to be fairly small to begin with. You can see the pink line there is the girls' school, and you see the enrollment's actually been declining over the last 4 years. And the boys' school has floated around 100 kids, and this is all anchored to the October enrollment count for each year. Yes, Dr. Bruce.
Dr. Brown, for context, can we just share with the community, and this might be for Dr. Mosier, we're going to get it right, Doc. Context, these are what type of enrollment schools, i.e. neighborhood versus lottery? Do they have athletic program? Can we provide additional context as to why the enrollment might be impacted differently than a Dominion, a Champion, I wanted to say Berwick, but
Sherwood.
given those different type of contexts.
So both of these schools are 100% lottery schools. They do not have a neighborhood assigned to the site. And as far as programs, they would have the middle school extracurricular programs that would be available across middle schools. Now, like we saw in our early inventory, there are some extracurricular activities that are only offered in certain sites in town. So we can get an inventory of what is available for students at boys' school and the girls' school. But to your overarching question, they are 100% lottery. They do not have a catchment area assigned to them.
And so I think for context, that's important because that means these two particular schools literally have to recruit students from within our district and, also from other districts if that is so with parents' desire. They can enroll into our district for a unique program such as one of these two. But then also when it comes to like our athletics, those students would then be participating most likely in some athletics in their home middle school versus this particular site. Is that correct?
They would have programs at the middle school.
So like basketball, soccer, volleyball?
What I don't have right in front of me is whether they offer the whole continuum of activities. So we'll get that.
And even if they're not offered at that school, though, they do have the option to participate in those other home schools or a school that is close by. But I think it's important to understand the context of that. So with these two particular schools that we're hearing about today, they definitely have to recruit students just for their enrollment, but also the students that enroll, the students and families there may face additional challenges as it relates to extracurricular activities. And I think that just helps us understand the context in which we might see a different type of enrollment for these two programs.
Also, there's no feeder pattern. So there's no direct high school that they go to. They go back to their home schools or open enroll someplace else. So that's another factor. I think it's not really in your slide, but Russ, you mentioned it very briefly when you were talking about all the things the team considered, and you talked about what the history, some of the history and why we started these schools. I don't know if at some point maybe you get through before we take questions, maybe we can come back to that, because I think that that's a good reminder about they're here. What was the original goal, purpose, intent for them? And so maybe we can kind of come back to that at the end. Because it's not here in your presentation, and I'm not sure I want to mess your order up here. So.
Okay, thank you. So again, just in comparison to other schools around the system, these are two underutilized facilities that have consistently had low enrollment over time. And when we look across the system as a whole, we have plenty of available seats in our remaining middle schools across the system. So if you look here, the capacity for the boys' school is about 431 students. It's only being used at about 25% of its capacity, and that's looking at the October numbers, which are higher than where we ended the year. The girls' school has space for 485 students. It's only being used at about 41% of its capacity, again, less than half. And our peer average across the system is nearly 80%, which is in that ideal window that we want for most schools. In order to hit that ideal window, we'd need 217 additional students at the boys' school and 166 additional students at the girls' school. And again, I point out that consistently we have not seen those sorts of enrollments for either of these settings. The enrollments have been pretty steady, and in the case of the girls' school, declining. And we have available seats across the system. So once we look at the number of students that are enrolled, then we can begin to look at what the cost is per student to attend these sites. The average cost across the system to attend for a peer school, any of our other 6 through 8 middle schools on average, about $13,000 to $14,000 per year. At the girls' school, it's a little bit more. It's about 25% more than the district average. The boys' school, on the other hand, is over 200% more expensive than the average. And again, these are just driven by small denominators. So if you take your cost and you just divide it by a small number of students, then the cost per student goes up in these settings. This plays out again and again and again. The low enrollment just drives cost for any of these metrics up. If we aggregate that, how much more does it cost to educate students at these gender academies, both of them together, in comparison to what it would cost if those students attended other sites. And that cost premium is about $2.6 million. That we're spending about $2.6 million more to educate students at the two gender academies than what it would cost if those students attended their peer schools around the system. So there's a substantial cost premium for keeping these two sites open.
And again, that cost per premium includes staffing, curriculum needs, building.
Transportation.
Everything.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive cost. And obviously, transportation costs are higher for these because they're citywide draw, 100% lottery. Then we start looking at academic outcomes. And we're going to look at both ELA, English Language Arts, and mathematics. The boys' school underperforms peer comparison schools in terms of English Language Arts. If you look there, the boys' school, I've got a light blue bar there. The peer ELA, or English Language Arts, the fuchsia colored bar there. And you can see the boys' school is not performing quite as highly as the district as a whole. The girls' school, on the other hand, significantly outperforms the district in ELA. It is worth pointing out, and the research team dug into this, part of that academic performance in terms of proficiency is driven by prior performance. The students who go to the girls' school tend to have higher academic performance than their peers around the system, and that translates into higher performance than when they're at the girls' school. That being said, the girls' school also has high growth rates. So not only, they're doing very well with the students who they receive, but the proficiency rate is largely driven by their prior proficiency. Yes?
While I appreciate this indicator, could you provide context for our community? Because we don't know what the time point for this data is. What scores are these based upon? Is this 2024-25 school year, 2025-26? Is there a historical trajectory that is showing that the boys' school regularly underperforms in ELA? Can you give us more context?
Sure, and thank you for that. This, again, is English Language Arts performance on the Ohio State test. Mm-hmm. It's averaged across grades 6, 7, and 8 for these buildings, so it's looking at the performance of those students across those grades. The performance tends to be relatively stable at these two sites, so there's not a lot of variability here. The performance is, for this, was anchored to the last year, but again, it would have been 24-25. But again, that performance tends to be relatively stable over time. When we look at mathematics, the boys' school, again, significantly underperforms peer districts as a whole, and the girls' school performs comparably to the peer districts. Again, looking at mathematics here, again, it's the math Ohio State test. It's the average performance, so we look at the number of students who took the test and the number of students who were proficient divided by the number of kids who took the test in that window of time, and that gives us a proficiency rate for those grade levels. So it's 6, 7, and 8, and again, in comparison to peer districts, the boys' schools significantly underperforms, girls' school performs comparably.
I have a quick
question. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You go ahead.
And without going too far into the weeds, what do you feel contributes to the boys' scores the significant underperformance? Why is that, right? And if that's been over the case of 3 years, 4, like, what have we been doing to ensure that's not the case?
Mm-hmm. So I can talk about the what in this case. I'm not really prepared to dig into the why on that one, and I think that could be fairly complicated. Mm-hmm. I think there's probably a multi-factor piece to that. But the performance of the boys' school has historically run lower over time.
Sean?
My question was about, you probably know or probably don't, how many of our middle schools are lottery schools?
These two are 100% lottery.
How many middle schools do we have that are 100% lottery?
Indianola?
I'll grab that for you.
Yeah.
And then even if so, could we also take these two schools and compare them to the other lottery schools that are 100%?
Comparison, I think you're comparing apples to oranges when it comes to these programs. And I guess also with the question that Dr. Kennedy poses, Dr. Mosier, when we are trying to explain why there's different academic outcomes, I think we've seen in the last couple of monitoring reports where there has been more intervention in terms of reading time. We are starting that with math this upcoming year. I guess my question builds on Dr. Kennedy's question by saying, if we've seen this historical trend, why weren't those interventions put particularly into our boys' schools sooner, especially since it's a smaller environment and atmosphere for them to be able to get the one-on-one and small group intervention? I would think that that would be the perfect environment to send some of our students that need additional intervention. Does that, you understand my question?
Yes. I advanced one slide, I skipped ahead, but it looks like academic outcomes are, this is your final slide on that. So can we go back though? So a lot of, why maybe some families choose these education settings for their kids is to set them up better for high school. Learning in a single gender middle school is challenging, might set them up better for high school. Have we followed the classes to know if that sort of outcome is working? Are students who attend the boys and girls school, are they performing better in 9th grade than those that didn't?
Yeah. This, again, focused on really the academic return on investment based on current enrollment and performance. I think that's an interesting question, and one that we can come back to look at, what happens as those students matriculate to high school, and is there a differential outcome for them? Again, taking into account prior academic performance, et cetera, things so that we're doing an apples-to-apples comparison as those kids move forward.
Yeah, that's true too. Like you said, the girls seem to be coming in. It's students that have higher performance than the boys, so perhaps that's contributing to the score differential as well. So that's interesting as well, like understanding the classes coming in and what happened 4th and 5th grade.
Yep.
Could we also see per grade breakdown too of those tables?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I would also add, I think, to Board Member Adair's question, I think that's the value proposition of these two programs, is that for 3 years you get this intensive intervention, so hopefully they are performing better in high school. So I too am very interested in, have we been keeping track of that data?
Because that would be more of the academic return on investment overall, right? As opposed to that snapshot.
And let me just again say it in the terms of like I think Rush, you had a $2.6 million number, I think somewhere in here, right? So again, what we have to decide as a community is that a value that we want to pay for? Is $2.6 million this program, is it going to be part of that layer 2 services where it becomes part of ed specs, or is it something that we need further discussion on? So again, kind of like talking about it in full scale to understand why we have to do this. And we're doing this with all programs, not just, we're starting here. But like, that's why understanding the cost, but I also want to make sure that, and that's why I, mentioned, why did we start it in the first place? Because, we have programs, not just this one, that have been around a long time, and sometimes we lost focus and we didn't invest in them the way we should have, to Dr. Pierce's point about maybe providing interventions that the boys need. We've known a long time the boys' school has been struggling. That's not news. We knew that. And so, how are we supporting it? How are we supporting marketing? How are we, if these are things that our community really wants us, and that's the question, to invest in, then we need to actually invest in them. And so that becomes that value question. And so, just kind of, again, putting that higher level bubble around it. when we talk about all of our programs, we have to kind of think about it in those terms as well. Okay, sorry.
So it sounds like we need additional information to be able to make the decision whether or not there's a good return on academic investment here. So my request would also be when this presentation comes back, that we also have information related to the whole child supports, because the other question may be, are these particular students dealing with a number of different factors that students in our other middle school environments may not be dealing with, or they might have additional supports that are helping them through it, that these students may not have those additional supports. So I asked the question because the expectation would be that there are, for example, more external partners that are coming in to help them build their confidence with public speaking, with math, with presentation. I know we have the tie ceremony over at the boys' school. So what type of social, emotional, whole child supports are we building within that infrastructure of the school building that are costing us money or are also given to us in kind? Because I think the 2.6 million shows what we're spending, but we also may have an additional 1 million coming in from external supports via the city, the county, or, national grant program.
And they started that inventory of, you were doing that with all the services where the schools were, so, yeah, all of this fits, and we have to figure out how it all fits in, but absolutely.
Be happy to look at them.
Sorry, Russ.
No, that's fine. And I think that the whole child team will be more than happy to lean into that.
I'm sure I have it.
And just to go back to the academic outcomes one more time, is the peer ELA and the peer math, is that disaggregated for boys and girls, or that's combined?
Combined.
So can we get that disaggregated to see how boys in middle school overall and girls in middle school overall are performing?
Yeah.
I will say, I want to back up to this just for a moment in terms of the math. If we look at the math and the ELA performance, generally speaking, prior academic performance on the OST or pick your reliable measure is generally pretty darn predictive of future performance. So how students are doing in middle school, these measures are pretty good predictors of subsequent performance. We will, again, look at the longitudinal piece, but generally speaking, it would surprise me if there was a large deviation from what could be explained just from this academic performance that we see here. So.
And you know what, as I look at the list that we did receive from the whole child supports, it doesn't look like they're getting a lot of that external support at these two schools. So yes, can we dive deeper into that?
Yep.
Or just have the conversation to say, if we are going to continue to make this investment, let's ensure that we're getting more tier 1, 2, and 3 partner support.
So again, looking at the academic outcomes in terms of proficiency, and again, just dividing the number of proficient, the cost per proficient student. They're looking at the number of students who are proficient, and then again, the dollars that were spent at the building. For a student to be proficient in English language arts across the system, on average costs the system about $38,000 to do it. For mathematics, it's slightly higher. We're spending roughly $58,000 per student to have a student be proficient on mathematics. Those are the comparisons then that we use for everything in this, and you can see that at the boys' school, for example, we're spending about $180,000 per each student that is proficient, and almost $500,000 per each student who's proficient in mathematics. So if we look at that, obviously it's significantly more expensive for ELA, and it is extraordinarily expensive for mathematics when we compare it to peer sites around the system. For ELA, for the girls' school, they're a little bit less expensive than district average for their outcomes. On the other hand, in mathematics, they're slightly more expensive. It costs about 38% more for a student to achieve proficiency at the girls' school in mathematics versus the baseline comparison to the system as a whole. So again, overall, achieving proficiency for students is much more expensive at these two sites than it would be in comparable sites around the system. So putting it all together, again, the district spends somewhere in the range of $2.5 to $2.8 million per year more to keep these two sites open versus what it would cost to educate students in peer sites around the system. Again, mathematics scores, $450,000 per proficient math student versus a district average of $58,000 at the boys' school. $180,000 per proficient student on English language arts versus a district average of $38,000 at the boys' school. The girls' school, again, performs well above the district average in reading and slightly better in math. The costs per math are about 35% more than the district average, $78,000 versus $58,000. Again, cost for ELA slightly lower than the district as an average. And finally, these two programs are joined at the hip legally. So if we were to consider closing or discontinuing one of these programs, and again, this is the value judgment that has to be made in the end, that has to be done together. You can't do one without the other.
Before we jump into additional questions, I know we've been asking along, but can you maybe give us again some of that background, or Catherine, some of that history on how these two programs came up? What were the initial goals? Anything that could kind of help us set the stage? How long have they been in existence? Like some of that stuff.
So these two programs launched as part of an iteration of committee work more than a decade ago. The district at that time was looking for some innovative programs and spaces, and these two programs were part of that work. It was also at about the same time that I happened to be the principal at Indianola, and so that was the time when Indianola K-8 became a K-8. It had previously just served elementary students, and so these two programs, together with adding that 6, 7, and 8 grade program, and there were some others as well. The next committee meeting, I can bring that old innovative commission report. I was looking for an electronic version, and I actually think it was before we were doing those in electronic version. But at the time, the district was working to address academic performance in grades 6, 7, and 8. Also working to address innovative programs that families in the community were interested in, because there was a data point at the time that showed strong enrollment and more stability, less mobility at that time in elementary, but that families were seeking a middle school option, or options. And these were two of those programs. There were others as well. So two founding principals were charged with and provided some time and resources to do a great deal of research supported by a committee like this. And at that time, did a lot of work around learning styles for gender-based schools, and launched these two programs.
Do we know historically the high points of enrollment? You know, we see the numbers today in the past couple years, but over the long term, I mean, this, you know, the the community wanted this investment when it started, and, you know, kind of thinking about it now as a whole, how many students have gone through? What is the overall cost this has been to the district? And then again, I think going back to like being able to see, is this actually producing an outcome, like better high school or whatever we are looking at? I think it's future down the road. I think it is a high school metric. To me personally, that makes sense to my mind. You know, are we achieving that? Because right now with the enrollment so low, what you just said, it sounds like our community is not utilizing this as an option, and for there are a lot of reasons why that can be.
Absolutely.
Right, but the numbers are showing that they are not. Do you know historically, I mean, you probably don't have that right now, but maybe that's something you can get us, like the enrollment over time from the beginning of the programs?
We can absolutely pull the enrollment over time. I don't want to pull that from my memory.
And the academic outcomes, like test scores, right, from that time as well.
Right. Yeah, there will be some variation there because the assessments that we were using at the time of launch may be a little bit different, but certainly there would be something comparable.
Yeah, comparable, crosswalk.
I mean, even taking like, since we're looking at our math scores as a board, even just that 1 point, the math over the years.
Sure.
Is that test, should be similar, right? No? Oh, okay.
No, if we stuck with the OST,
Okay.
then it's an apples to apples. We go before that, then you get some changes in the standards and what was measured.
Okay.
So looking at the supports that they give, based upon the data that we received in past meetings, the boys' school gets Tier 3 support from ABLE. The girls' school gets Tier 3 support from Nationwide Children's Hospital Clinic and the Behavioral Clinic, Tier 3 supports. So with Tier 3 supports, isn't it our responsibility to keep additional data indicators and monitor those for those students? So if it's not test scores, then we should have an indicator that we are following those students throughout their secondary journey in high school meeting, right? Maybe it's they have less instances on their 504 plan. Maybe their IEP is changing with the different interventions that they need. So if it's not an indicator of a test score, what is the Tier 3 indicator that we are using as a district to show that we are providing those students with the adequate interventions, remediations, and the support that they need to be successful?
And maybe thinking about it too, in addition to that, maybe a different way to think about it is, if we were creating these two schools from scratch today, what would be our success metric? I mean, because, you know, we've given the history and like we're talking about what we see here and what we're doing, but when we look at single gender, we have some in the city that are extremely, you know, well attended and have high reputations, but other public school districts have these programs as well. What would be current benchmarks? What would be current things to kind of understand the landscape? And then also, because we've made choices, like we don't have a full pre-K-12 single gender, what kind of impacts have those choices made? And I don't know if we have, other than anecdotal, if we've actually have any of that sort of data, if we've surveyed parents coming out into ninth grade and saying, how do you feel about this? I mean, anecdotally, I've heard, they're like, please make a ninth grade. Like, but, you know, what's the kind of data around that? And I know that the families and the students who are in these schools, you know, they are working for many of the students, and they are having great experiences. So it's not to undercut any of that, right? This is just trying to understand, you know, when we make a choice to create and invest in these type of specialized programs, you know, as a board, we have to make sure that it is doing what we have committed to doing. Any other questions, comments? Treasurer Cook, internal auditor, I mean, because again, we're learning out loud here.
Yeah.
Right? So from your seats and your kind of worlds, is there anything maybe you can help us better understand or add or a question, now that you've heard our questions, kind of back to the administration to kind of strengthen this? Because I think this can also be, I don't want to say a template, because every program school will be different, but I think a good way to kind of work through and talk about what kind of data we're looking for and things like that.
Yeah, I think this is a heck of a foundation to build on, but I think some of the cohort data, to your point, I mean, I'm thinking about how I'm going to go through this process with AROI, not only where were they coming in, students, where are they at, and then kind of how do we track that going forward? Because again, as we look at, as I opened with impacts, those impacts might not just be felt today with a percentage return, but okay, what's that bang for the buck as we go from elementary to middle, high school? So I think we're setting the stage with this, and I think that's what I said. I mean, I'm going to stub my toe as I go through this, but I think as we evolve this process and we look at those, we're going to really have an awesome product for the community and especially the board as you make decisions at the table at the end of the day. But I really think that, looking at those cohorts as we go through, district-wide, building-wide, region-wide, et cetera. And I think, the aha moment for me was Dr. Pierce, the supports. That's a huge part of the equation as well. And we can't forget that. It's the direct cost, but it's also those indirect costs as well. So I think those are key components as I sat here and listened tonight as we build on the foundation.
Auditor?
And for me, again, it just, because I'm always off base here, but it's just a bigger picture. I mean, I like to see it lined up and say, hey, here's all the middle school data. This is what we're talking about right here. Now, why did these schools succeed? What supports are they getting that maybe these other schools didn't get? I think that's an important factor. And why didn't they get them? We choose to fund something else, but that would help with the ROI because, again, if we're being successful with these programs or supports, we need to replicate that up and down the spectrum so everybody benefits from that same stuff.
I think I'll add to that point. If you go out to Dr. Rose's website, the board member there mentioned, and I'll share that link for those that don't have it, we can look at that data now, and it's like I spoke about, okay, what are we doing at Beechcroft? That, we're not doing X, Y, Z here or there.
Actually, we have time. I thought this would take longer.
Yeah, let's pull it up if you
Could we pull up Dr. Rose's data for boys and girls school?
Yeah, give me a sec. Let me log in and see what I can find on that. But I think
really interesting.
We have the ability to look at, okay, what is being successful here? And I don't think we want to spend our time, there is a return on investment to that, reinventing the wheel. If we've got a principal and a teaching team that is just hitting it out of the park, let's replicate that. I mean, let's find out what that secret sauce is and take it. Because even though we're talking academic ROI, there's a business ROI as well to the time and investment and energy with that. But yeah, if you'll defer while you guys have some more conversation, let me see what I can find on that for you.
Well, I guess to keep that conversation going, if you even look at the whole child supports right now, the supports that they receive are focused on Tier 3. There's no Tier 1 or Tier 2 supports, which indicates to me that if you are a high-performing student going into that school, you may feel that you're not being offered some of the Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports that your friends at other middle schools are being offered. And so when I say that, for example, I saw the ROCKS program, I saw Community in Schools, I saw our Student Success Stores, they're around at other middle schools, right? So if you're only getting, again, the 3 that I mentioned earlier, the feeling may be that I'm missing out on other supports that I could be getting at another middle school because I'm here at this middle school, right? When they should actually be getting Tier 1, 2, and 3 supports, not just Tier 3 supports.
It's interesting. Girls' school's not getting rocks?
No, they're not. Look at the list. I'm amazed by this. They're just getting Tier 3 supports.
Any other comments, questions? How could we do this better? How could we talk about it better? Any thing that community members, you were because you already asked questions, so, but anything else that you would help in this analysis?
For me, it's a lot of what we talked about, right? Like historical, why did we even, what was the point?
Right.
And are we still on track? Are we off track? Like, again, if this chooses to be something that we continue invest in, what might the path forward look like? And then just getting that fuller picture of the data, which we know just tells, it tells some of the story, it doesn't tell the full picture, but just getting more of that information so that we have what we need to better understand the bigger picture and then help have those conversations and inform those decisions.
I know that, maybe too, aligning the data points to the goals that the board is monitoring. So when we talk about math, like that overall snapshot of the math, and then honestly, graduation, I want to know, is the graduation rate higher for these boys and girls school? And does it matter if they went 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Is it higher? Because, to me, I would expect that from a program like this, right? That would be my expectation, because it should be more intensive support, I think, for these, because that's the choice, right? So if we aren't producing that, so that's, again, the community value. That's what we have to decide. So this is not a mandatory service, right? This is something we choose to pay for. So is it going to be a 2 where we really are going to invest in it? We're going to build it into ed specs. We're going to, talk about it differently. Or is it a tier 3 where we may still do it, have it, but when we start talking about budget, we talk about other things, we talk about values, we talk about, we can't pay for everything, something isn't going to exist anymore. So that's the kind of dialogue. And we have to go out to the community on this, by the way. This isn't like us making that decision in here. This is the dialogue that we have to literally have with our community. So hey, those single gender experiences, you might know or not know, we have them. This is actually how much it costs, and then the outcome. Is this really what you want us to spend the money on when we also have this much we have to pay in level 1, which we didn't even get the full number for that. We need the full number of what that budget is for just level 1 that we have to pay for. Because we're going to have decisions we got to make. Ryan, I'm trying to
Buy time.
buy some time.
I appreciate your stalling beautifully.
Are there any other comments or questions? We could still, we could jump over to the survey data and then come back to this as well, since this is kind of an extra thing. And
So before we do that, I just want to see if I've captured the core of some of the ideas that were brought up today. Certainly interested in looking at longitudinal data for this as far back as we can go in terms of enrollment and outcomes. Particularly interested in secondary outcomes. So for me, that would be, what proportion of those students continue through high school with us as a leading one, attendance, discipline, graduation for those students in comparison to like peers. Certainly want to look at, again, indirect costs in terms of services that are provided in those buildings, particularly when we have match partners in those settings. And, the thing that I thought was interesting that you all brought up that, put some reflection into beyond graduation is if we were, again, creating this program today, if you, sort of the magic wand question, if we had this program today, what would we measure success? What would be the measure that we would use for success? And what I think I've heard consensus on is graduation would probably be the consensus piece. I'm worried with the low numbers that we may not have as much of that cohort follow through for that, but that's something that we can take a look at over time. So.
Also, what are the tier 3 indicators?
Mm-hmm.
So again,
yep.
504, IEPs, changes.
And it disaggregated.
Yeah. Yeah, the gender disaggregation, yeah. And again, for simplicity, I just wove it all together, but yeah, breaking data apart is not the hard part here.
So I pulled up the data. We've got some middle school data here, but we don't have these two particular middle schools listed on here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I'm going to inquire with Georgetown on why they're not there. Very intriguing. So to be determined.
Okay, well, darn.
No.
That would have been fun to look at.
Yes, it
but-
would have.
Well, we should ask Georgetown and make sure they get them on so that we have
Yeah.
our full, and check to see, make sure all our.
That's what I was about to say. All
I'm
of
gonna
the
check 'em
schools are
all.
on there?
I think, though, we might want to temper that because the N is so low.
That's what I was gonna say.
So in comparison
Maybe
to
that's
our other enrollments, the N is low. By putting that data in,
It's going to skew.
it would skew, and
I
you would
wondered that as
clearly
well.
know what students are attached to which school. So that's probably why it's
I'm
not.
going to confirm, that's my theory with their data person as well, but I'd like to know. But yes, thank you.
All right, well,
That, Dr. Pierce, that is a very good point to bring up, that while we can disaggregate this data, it's not hard to disaggregate the data. We will bump into a corner from time to time when those numbers get low enough that we do not want to, in any way, shape, or form, individually identify students or teachers in that process. And I think in small school settings, we need to be a little cautious with that.
Very cautious.
Because it'd be very easy to inadvertently do so.
okay, so again, we're not doing it tonight, but ultimately, the question will be, will this be a layer 2 or 3? And we will make that determination as a community and eventually the board. And then we will keep doing this with more programs. So this will kind of be the thing that we're going to be doing now. All right, well, thank you for the exercise. If after the fact you were like, okay, we could have done it better, or there was something else, let us know. Because again, this was our first time looking at it. And the more we start to learn about academic return, and we're working on, not me, they are working on kind of metrics and kind of ways that internally they're going to kind of score things so it's easier for us to kind of talk about it across the district so that we can compare it better. So they're practicing and working on that. So this is all a big work in progress.
And I do want to throw one other caveat out there regarding using measures that are 3 or 4 years down the road after a student leaves a building. This bubbles up all the time when we look at high schools and we want to look at post-secondary outcomes. The further you get away from graduation, the more things happen in between that impact that. The same's true for kids going from middle school to high school. There's 4 years of intervening things that are going on there. So, as we're going down this road and figuring this out, I think we have to figure out, leading and lagging indicators and how we balance that in that conversation. There's value to both, obviously, but there's a balance there that I think we're going to have to navigate over time. Because again, the further I get away from 8th grade, the more I've got other things that have impacted that, those two schools had no agency over in any way, shape, or form.
I think that does make sense, but then I think it comes down to what is the purpose of these schools? Because if it's really to build stronger students, and that's why parents are choosing, and again, I don't know why parents are choosing those particular schools, but if it's to build stronger students so they can make that transition easier into 9th grade, to me it's logical, then that would set them up for a stronger high school experience. But I think it's important that we look at it, maybe there is a 9th grade look at, but then ultimately our whole job as a district is to graduate students. So, ultimately we should always be keeping that graduation number in mind because, this is why we build. I mean, we're talking about investing in pre-K because we know that gets us better readers in 3rd grade. Better readers are going to do better in math because they can comprehend better. They're going to do algebra, and we know when they do algebra, they're going to pass graduation. So we already do the whole continuum, and so we just got to figure out what the markers are.
Yeah.
But I think that's why it's so difficult with these two particular schools because they, our Eastmore Academy was, the medical to science, right? Our medical pathway with East and Champion. So with these particular schools, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was always around building confidence because you're not around the opposite gender, right? And so it really wasn't about the strong academic program, it was about the community, right? And if they don't even have rocks, for example, when they are at the school for the girls, then how are we measuring how these young ladies build community with the other young ladies once they enter into high school, right?
I'll just say community, yes. And based on research around learning styles of adolescent boys and girls. And so, I think fidelity of implementation and whether we continued to invest in the professional development, did we continue to ensure that we were responding to the latest research around what we know better, we do better, right? And in these two schools, for several years, there's been a question about whether we had the resources, whether we were making the investments in materials, in professional development. Were we bringing the materials and resources so that students see themselves? And so, yes, community and that academic support.
And even with the academic, I think it would also just be a conversation when professional development happens at the beginning of each academic year to say, we have X number of students who are coming from the girls' school or who are coming from the boys' school, and this is the curriculum that they've been exposed to. Here's the teaching style that they've been exposed to. So how do we as a team get ready for the entry of these students into our building, into our culture, right? So that would also be an indicator. And if we're not even doing that at a base level, then there's a problem with that model.
And this is to any of our special schools. I mean, we had Mr. Tennant come and talk to us about Afrocentric. We have, Eastmore that, was, designated. Are we following that curriculum? Like, I think that this is a general question. We already know about the STEM schools, right? Like, not all of them are actually doing STEM. I mean, this is open dialogue we've been having for years. And so again, like if we are going to make this offer of special experiences, which is a layer 2 or 3, right? Then we have to actually invest in it to make sure that the outcomes we're achieving. So again, we started with girls and boys, but all of these types of schools programs, because it's above the mandate. These are all choices our community has made. All right. Good dialogue, everyone. Just the beginning. All right, so we worked on a survey. We put the survey out, and we're going to hear what the results are. The survey was to help us answer questions that we have to report on at the next meeting. The board leadership gave us to address some of the questions that they had about why families were choosing CCS. Should have written the questions down or brought them with me. I'll look them up and tell them to you again. But there was a set of questions that our leadership asked us to address, and the survey was put out to help us give some data and information at the next board meeting. So I'll turn it over to Russ.
So we don't have a complete summary of the survey at this point in time. We do have the immediate results, but we'll put together a summary for you all from that. Pleased to say that we had over 1,500 respondents to the survey, which is pretty good. Representing, yeah, exactly. That's a pretty good return rate. Representing a fairly broad range of languages: Spanish, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, Thai, Arabic, Korean, Chinese, Somali, etc. It was a fairly broad segment of our group. The tool that we use does automatically translate and provide it in a number of additional languages to make it accessible. Largest pool of respondents, not surprisingly, were parents. followed by teachers, and CCS staff, and students and administrators in that order. So again, a fairly large number of respondents. Going through item by item here would take a long time. We will put together an aggregate report for you that summarizes it. But yeah, I think the participation rate was pretty darn good, and we saw a good representation not only of languages but different roles in that survey process. So.
When was it publicly, I'll say launched, this word we use a lot, but
Like
released?
two Fridays ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
Something like
What was
that.
the one? I don't have that off the
It was open in about 2 weeks. It is true that the wrong link went out the first time. The good news is there was no response to that first one. And so the responses that Dr. Brown just shared were for the correct link.
So a couple of requests are we going to keep it open? I'm hoping at least 2 more weeks or so, however long. Can we continue to push it with our students? I'm thrilled that our parents have participated. I think the last couple of surveys we've done as a board, we've seen more staff participation than parent and students. So committee, this gives us hope. We have engaged the community in a very impactful way. So can we push it more to the students and parents and staff as well, but definitely to students? And what is it looking like in terms of our zip code? I'm also concerned to ensure that we are getting a broad feedback from the entire community and not just certain pockets or regions. Don't give me the Pac-Man bubble, Dr. Brown. Please tell me we're outside of the Pac-Man bubble.
So what I have right now is a word cloud in front of me of zip codes.
What's the largest zip code you see in the word cloud?
It's a toss-up of between 43214 and
That's
229.
And 229?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the Beechcroft Northland, right? So, okay.
But it
432.
it encompasses, just rough look at this, 30 or 40 different zip codes.
All right, let's push outside of those zip codes some more.
All right, I found the questions, so here are the questions. What academic programs does the district offer? We're answering some of this, like, within our committee. What academic programs does the district not offer? Is the community satisfied with the current academic offerings, and why are families choosing CCS? So we will have, as a committee, we will make this report to the board about where we are in time and answering these questions.
It's just
Onward,
clarification.
upward, forward.
For clarification, we'd certainly leave the survey open as long as the committee directs. And I know there's a report. So we'll leave the survey open a couple more weeks?
Yeah, I think
That
it's
will
fine to
still
leave
give
open
time.
because we can update, because then there's December questions. So the December questions are, how do we get what the community wants in the academic offering? So this is part of the ed specs and the layer conversation. How does it, what does it cost to obtain the offerings? And this is that joint work with ETRM. And what are the barriers to obtaining offerings the community wants? So those are our December questions. So I think that we can continue to leave the survey up and probably do other types of surveys as well to dig in where we need to.
So my recommendation would be if we are on recess as a board for July, that we leave the survey open until around July 20th. We close it then. That gives you all 2 weeks to be able to go through the survey data to get a preliminary report up and emailed to us. Our first regular board meeting that we come back to was August 4th. So that gives 2 weeks to be able to look at some data and just for you as the chair to have some preliminary remarks for that first meeting when we come back.
I'll have to ask permission to move it from, because leadership wanted it this next meeting, but I can give kind of a summary where we are and then.
So I think we give the summary. We have great participation. We have broad participation. You know, we're getting you the information, but I think in terms of concrete, here's the data, here's what we're recommending. You'll have it by August 4th. which gives us, I think, a good ramp to prepare for the info that we would need then by December. So that gives you that first quarter when we go back to school to launch another survey to be able to get that December data that you need.
All right. Well, that was everything on our agenda. Does anyone have anything? Oh, I did want to say that we do have the at-a-glances that we worked on. I already see a typo on the pre-K one, just really quick. But these are supposed to be finalized based on our comments and feedback. But again, take a quick look because, again, I just spied a typo. And if you guys see anything, let the team know. The big changes, again, we did the single gender schools. They're now on one paper. We have the paragraphs at the top now for each one of them. And then there are the QR codes at the bottom or somewhere on the sheets. And then there were some of the other tweaks that were suggested on various ones. So please take a look at those. The team, I think, did a really good job on them. And again, this is just more for us when we go out to the community, for board members, so that we all are starting to work off the same information.
So do you want a due date for that feedback?
Yeah, if
17th, a
everybody,
week?
yeah, if everyone could look at them in the next week, because the team is, again, we're slowing down for July, so it'd be nice to have these totally finalized for the next school year, for the summer when we go do the back-to-school fairs and.
We could Carl could send an electronic version so that you would have those as you go into the summer.
Okay.
If feedback could please go to Carl.
By the 17th?
Yes, by the 17th.
Alrighty, well, if there is nothing else, thank you all, and I will just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, and with that, we are adjourned.